Japan has long been associated with a strictly defensive military posture, shaped by post-war constitutional constraints and a deeply rooted public consensus against offensive military power. For decades, the Japan Self-Defense Forces were structured, trained, and politically justified as forces designed solely to repel attacks against the homeland. Yet over the past several years, a gradual but unmistakable shift has taken place in Japanese defense thinking. Concepts such as long-range strike capability, counterstrike capability, and standoff weapons have entered official policy documents and public debate, raising a fundamental question for Japanese society and regional observers alike. How far has Japan really gone? The starting point of this discussion lies in Japan's traditional defense doctrine, often described as an exclusively defense-oriented policy. Under this framework, Japan rejected the possession of weapons that could be clearly interpreted as offensive, such as intercontinental ballistic missiles or strategic bombers. However, successive governments have argued that the Constitution does not prohibit all forms of counterattack. If Japan were subjected to an armed attack and no other means were available to defend the nation, limited counterstrikes could be considered constitutionally permissible. This legal interpretation has existed for decades, but it remained largely theoretical until the regional security environment began to deteriorate. The rapid development of missile capabilities in East Asia has been a decisive factor in this reassessment. Advances in ballistic and cruise missiles, combined with shorter warning times, have exposed the limits of purely reactive defense. Intercepting every incoming missile is neither technically guaranteed nor financially sustainable, even with layered air and missile defense systems. As a result, Japanese policymakers increasingly view limited long-range strike capabilities as a complementary tool to deterrence, rather than as a departure from Japan's defensive identity. Japan's emerging long-range strike capability does not resemble the offensive strike forces maintained by traditional military powers. Instead, it focuses on standoff weapons that can be deployed from existing platforms, primarily aircraft and naval vessels. These systems are intended to engage targets at extended distances without requiring Japanese forces to penetrate heavily defended airspace. Importantly, the emphasis is on flexibility and restraint. The weapons under consideration are not designed for large-scale power projection, but for narrowly defined scenarios linked to national self-defense. This shift has significant implications for the structure and integration of the self-defense forces. Long-range strike capability cannot function in isolation. It requires accurate intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as well as robust command and control networks capable of processing information in real time. For Japan, this reinforces the importance of joint operations among the ground, maritime, and air self-defense forces. It also highlights existing constraints, including limited manpower and the high cost of maintaining advanced sensor networks. The role of the United States remains central in this equation. Japan is not pursuing long-range strike capability as an independent strategic force. Instead, it is developing these capabilities within the framework of the United States-Japan alliance. In practical terms, this means deep integration in areas such as intelligence sharing, targeting data, and operational coordination. While Japan retains political control over its forces, the effectiveness of its long-range strike capability depends heavily on alliance interoperability. This reliance on the alliance raises important questions within Japan about autonomy and decision-making. Public debate often focuses on who would authorize a counterstrike, under what conditions, and based on which information. These questions are not merely technical. They go to the heart of Japan's post-war identity and its relationship with its principal security partner. The government has attempted to address these concerns by emphasizing that any use of long-range strike capability would remain strictly defensive and subject to civilian control. Domestic reactions to this shift are mixed and nuanced. Some segments of Japanese society view long-range strike capability as a necessary response to an increasingly dangerous regional environment. From this perspective, deterrence requires credible capabilities, not just political declarations. Others express concern that even limited strike capabilities could erode the spirit of the Constitution and increase regional tensions. Academic and policy communities continue to debate whether the benefits of enhanced deterrence outweigh the risks of escalation and misperception. Regionally, Japan's evolving posture is closely watched. Neighboring countries interpret Japan's actions through their own strategic lenses, often shaped by historical memory and contemporary rivalry. Japanese officials consistently stress that their objective is not to seek military dominance, but to prevent conflict by raising the costs of aggression. In this sense, long-range strike capability is framed as a stabilizing factor intended to reinforce deterrence rather than undermine it. A realistic assessment shows that Japan has indeed moved further than at any point in the post-war era. The conceptual and policy barriers surrounding long-range strike have been lowered, and practical steps are being taken to acquire relevant capabilities. At the same time, Japan remains constrained by legal interpretations, political oversight, and alliance dependence. The gap between possessing a capability and being willing to use it remains significant, and this gap is deliberately maintained. Ultimately, Japan's approach to long-range strike capability reflects a broader strategic balancing act. The country seeks to adapt to a harsher security environment without abandoning the principles that have defined its post-war trajectory. Rather than a dramatic transformation, what is unfolding is a controlled and cautious evolution. Japan is expanding its options, not redefining its identity. The debate over how far Japan should go will continue, shaped by regional developments, domestic politics, and the enduring tension between deterrence and restraint.